sellers and listing agents don't get to decide how much the buyer agents are getting paid. Look, it's catching a lot of listing agents off guard. They're not ready for this. In addition to that, we're also going to cover what in the wide world of sports is going on with mortgage rates, right?
Plus, who is today's buyers and sellers? How and where do they buy? My name is Ming Richardson, and this is a real estate backstory.
My name is Alan Richardson, and we do this every week. We kind of talk about the comings, the goings, the things happening in the real estate market. We want to jump into a scenario that happened inside our brokerage, and kind of the impact that we're seeing how this is impacting our real estate market today. So, we had the NAR lawsuit, and a lot of consumers don't understand a lot of it. A lot of real estate professionals don't understand a lot of it, and we're starting to see where some of the scenarios and some of the things that are kind of coming as a result of this are not necessarily what folks thought was going to happen. Like one of the biggies that we saw was everyone thought that buyer agent compensation was going to go down. And we actually, like we just shared last week, that buyer agent compensation has actually not gone down. It's actually ticked up a little bit. And so we want to get into story time just a little bit, right? So one of our agents, they're working with a client, and so we have a buyer, we have a buyer's agent, and this buyer and buyer agent have worked together for years. They bought and sold multiple homes together. Our agent has a buyer brokerage agreement that
Seller
states
listing agreement.
no buyer brokerage agreement.
The buyer side of
it.
Yeah,
the buy side, the buyer brokerage agreement that states that the buyer's agent will be compensated by 3% compensation. Now there is no set compensation rate, so
But that's what she charged.
Right. So she charged 3%, and has a buyer brokerage agreement signed prior to showing any properties. So they go out, they find a property. Now, on this property, the listing agent, and see, here's where I want you to pay real close attention. The listing agent negotiated with their seller. Now, we don't represent the listing agent, we don't represent the seller, but the listing agent went to their seller and they negotiated 4% compensation.
Total.
They negotiated 2% for the buyer's agent, 2% for the listing agent. They advertised 2% compensation. They advertised it in FMLS when someone would call and ask.
Other sites.
Yeah, I mean, like still inside our industry, you can call and say, is the seller offering any making any offers of compensation? And so they weren't withholding it, anything like that. So this particular listing been on the market for about 75 days. So it's going on 2.5, heading towards 3 months on the market. Our agent takes their buyer. They like the house. They make an offer, and the details of the offer are they offer $10,000 less than asking. They want 3% compensation for the agent, and they want 2% in closing cost. Well, the seller comes back, and the seller agrees to everything. They're not real happy about the $10,000 off, but they understand that the market is what the market is, and so they agree to everything. They agreed to the 2% in closing costs, but they want to reduce the buyer's agent compensation to 2%. They're only going to offer 2%. Well, the buyer comes back and the buyer says, look, my original offer is my original offer. I need 3% agent compensation, because if the seller doesn't pay that compensation, then the buyer has to come out of pocket for that.
And they can afford it.
And then they can't afford to buy the house.
So now it becomes of affordability issues. So either seller can say, hey, listen, we will take the contract as is, or we will let this buyer walk.
Yeah.
And so, the house has been on 75 days. Seller's like, you know what? Okay, fine. I will pay the additional 1% that I did not originally agree. So just understand what you offer out there versus what is binding is two different things.
See, the seller actually first time came back and countered back and accused the buyer's agent of being greedy, right? So, in the listing agreement that the seller has with the listing agent, the seller they said, look, we were really clear about it. We're only paying 2%, and that's fine. The seller said, look, I agreed to 4% compensation and sharing half. However, it wasn't explained to the seller that, look,
How the
that
compensation
look,
worked.
the seller, or the compensation for the buyer's agent, is it a written agreement between the buyer and the buyer's agent, right? I get that the seller agreed with their listing agent that they would do it for 4%, but that doesn't match up with the contractual obligation of that buyer
Correct.
with their buyer. So if the seller won't agree to the 3% compensation, then the buyer can't afford the home,
It's
right?
about affordability at that point.
So the listing agent called our agent and wanted to give our agent a hard time, and they were actually kind of unpleasant, right? Furious was the right way to
Yes.
kind of describe them. And he said, "Look, I agreed to 4%, and now that you're getting 3%, I'm only getting 1%. This is messed up. You're doing wrong. You're taking advantage of me." Talk about a big change, right? I mean, in the past, it was like the listing agents and the sellers, they're the ones who held all the cards when it came to compensation. Because in the past, buyer's agents would be like, okay, they're offering 2%. Okay, they're offering 3%. Okay, they're offering
Two and a
whatever.
half,
Right.
whatever it
It
is.
doesn't matter. Again, there's no set compensation. But in the past, it was buyer's agents kind of took whatever was being dangled out there, kind of thing. Now that buyer brokerage agreements are being negotiated between the buyer and the buyer's agent prior to showing, the sellers don't really have the ability, and the listing agents don't have the ability to say, hey, you get to take what we agreed for. So don't get me wrong, I feel bad for the listing agent. But the real problem here is that,
Communication.
well, gone are the days that the listing agent and the seller can dictate what the buyer's agent gets compensated, right? And so we have a lot of agents that are trying to operate in the old system. Back in the day, and the way that it's been done previously was, look, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I charge 6 bananas, and I'm going to share 3 of the bananas with the other agent. That's what the Department of Justice doesn't want done anymore. The Department of Justice doesn't want that
They want
compensation is
decoupling.
right. Yeah, they want it completely decoupled. And so the way that this is going right now, we have to understand that a lot of listing agents kind of felt like times aren't really going to change, and this is catching listing
Agents.
agents off guard. It really is catching them off. And so let's cut to the chase about what's really important and how are you going to negotiate. I mean, as a listing agent, right? Because this is, we wanted to speak to listing agents right now. Listen, negotiate what you will be compensated with your seller, right? The days of being able to say this is what you'll pay, you don't have that level of control that we've had in the
Correct.
past. I'm not saying it's not negotiable. I'm not saying that as a seller that you don't have the ability to negotiate that. But I understand it's a negotiation. Whereas it used to kind of be, this is what we're offering. Now, I mean, this is what you're going to get paid. Now you may make an offer. So you need to, as a listing agent, you need to discuss with your seller if they're willing to offer any compensation towards the buyer's agent. That doesn't mean that they're not going to. Sorry, back up. You need to make sure that you're discussing with the seller that even if they don't make an offer of compensation, it's going
That
to be included in the offer.
the potential of a buyer's agent asking for that compensation is highly likely.
Well, it's actually the proper way is the buyer is requesting the seller to pay the the buyer's agent compensation, because buyer
Because
agents couldn't ask for that.
the way the contract got written is in a format where buyer, this is all they can afford. And part of that
Mhm.
purchase price does include the compensation to the buyer's agent. So therefore, this is the total price for the purchase of my home. If you look at it, back in the days when a seller bought their house, that was the case. So really nothing has changed other than the fact that all these I guess, buzz around the internet that says, hey, you can buy a house much cheaper or you can
Could
sell a house
sell a
much
house, yeah.
cheaper. That is not true because all these people jump in a gun without knowing what our industry consists of, doesn't understand the dynamics behind the whole entire negotiation.
And especially here in Georgia, like our sellers have never, well, at least when I say never, in the last 30 years, sellers were not forced to pay a buyer's agent compensation, but it was smart business to do that.
Correct.
Now moving forward, do our sellers have to make offers of compensation? No.
No,
Do
absolutely
they
not.
have to pay the buyer's agent compensation? Do they have to?
No.
No. But the challenge is this becomes an affordability issue for the buyers. The buyers want to be able to finance in the compensation for their agent, and buyers, I mean, like it's roughly 88, 89%, almost 90% of buyers are represented. And so the in that representation agreement is signed in advance to showing the
Correct.
property. So if a seller's not gonna negotiate for that buyer's agent compensation, then that seller is, like
Well,
a
the
lot of
seller,
buyers can't afford it,
well, the
is what
thing
we're really
is
saying.
the okay. The bottom line is, are you in the industry, Mister and Mr. Seller? Are you in the business of selling your home, or are you in the business keeping your home? Because at the end of the day, this is all about affordability for the buyer, and they cannot absolutely give any more than what is the sale price.
Right. So again, just to kind of wrap up one more time here, listing agents
Hmm.
negotiate your compensation.
Absolutely.
Ask if the seller is going to be willing to make any offers of compensation, because you can still advertise that in FMLS. You can advertise that out, and then even if they don't, discuss with your seller about the fact that on all our purchase and sales now, we're seeing where compensation is either included as a special stip or it's F-258, and it's coming in there either way.
259.
Oh, I'm sorry, 259. It's going to be coming in as part of that offer. Compensation is going to be included. We got to make sure that
Well, if
that's
you think
ready.
about it, nobody works for free. Just
Yep.
like we all have to provide our four walls within our family. So to expect other side not to be able to provide for their family and basically use all their knowledge, their education, their time, their
Mm-hmm.
resources for absolutely nothing, I think that's a wrong way of thinking moving forward.
All right, so let's change gears.
Yay,
Federal
federal.
Reserve, woo, came out and they cut
Yes,
rates by a quarter point. And yeah,
absolutely.
and then
Yay. What?
yeah,
So
then all of a sudden interest rates didn't go down.
it went up.
Actually, the interest rates went up, right? And so, like things aren't making sense. We have dogs and cats living together. I mean, like it's just crazy things are going on. But you have to understand that like interest rates are, while they are connected to the
Correct.
federal funds rate, interest rates are driven by the 10-year treasury, and the 10-year treasury is driven by market dynamics. And we just had an election, and I don't care which way you went left
Doesn't
or right,
matter.
happy or not. The whole thing here is that the markets are reacting to what's happening in like politics. They are, and so like moving forward right now. First of all, the consumer housing sentiment is really good. Folks want to buy more homes.
Absolutely.
The market is still really, really engaged. Right now, there's just so much uncertainty that's driving nut rates crazy. Just hold on a little bit. Look, we are looking at interest rates that are going to keep moderating here. We're going to see things that start moving in the proper direction. Like if you talk about Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Wells Fargo, Mortgage Bankers Association, and you look at what are the predictions for where rates are going. Rates are heading into the fives. They're just not there yet. And with so much volatility in the markets, I mean, if you've been following the financial markets, I mean, it's just it's like someone's jumping on a trampoline right now. So as soon as the markets calm down, we are going to see a lot of improvements when it comes to mortgage rates. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't be like. Do I recommend someone locking it right now? No,
No.
not at all. But now is the right time to start looking and being engaged in the process here. So
Up to another topic,
yeah,
renters. Guess what? A renter household growing three times faster the homeowner household right now.
And that we find that troubling and worrying that rental households are growing at 3 times the rate of homeowner households, right? And the main reason why that's a concern for us is because of where wealth in the United States comes from, right?
Hmm.
Wealth comes from home ownership. And so when you say, okay, the rental market is increasing at a 3x right now, and then you look at like multifamily housing units, apartments, those kind of things are being built at their fastest pace on record. And so, do I believe that especially for our first time buyers, those kind of things, that it's more challenging to buy in this market? Yeah, I absolutely
Absolutely.
do. But when you look at where does wealth come from, it comes from home ownership. And so,
Always.
I'm not saying that my heart doesn't go out. I'm not saying like oh, don't worry about it. It's no big
Eh,
deal. I get it. It's a big deal.
This is where I would encourage agents for you to start doing more first time home buyer seminar. Educate the public, educate them so they understand where the wealth is being spent.
Yeah,
So, is it a short term process? Absolutely not. So, it is a long term process, but this is how you can foster your relationship with future clients as
yeah.
well.
So with all the jumping around of interest rates and those kind of things going on, it's kind of changed some of the buying patterns for both buyers and sellers. What's kind of going on? There was so National Association of Realtors has released their 2024 home buyer and seller sentiment indexes, and as well as their study on that. And we just want to share some of that information with you. And the first thing is that overall buyers are getting older. For our repeat buyers, are I mean, like if you've bought and sold a home before, so if you're not a first time buyer, the median age is 61. If you are a first time buyer median age is the oldest it's ever been. It's 30
38.
38. Our average has
Yeah.
been 30 to 32. And now our first time buyers are 38. It shows that folks are waiting, looking for interest rates to drop, those kind of
Well,
things.
it really truly is affordability based on their pay scale and what they can afford.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, that is happening.
Yeah. Now, right now, our first time buyers are making up around 24% of our market, which, don't get me wrong, a quarter of a market is still a real significant piece. But when you look at where we are now compared to historically, even last year, first time buyers made up over 30% of our market. And if you go all the way back to 2010, first time buyers made up half of our market. There is so much pent up demand with first time buyers right now, and it's all hinging on those interest rates. So, I know we're kind of going
And
back
once
to it, but it's a
again,
really
we were
big
so
deal.
spoiled during pandemic where the interest rate was phenomenal. You probably won't ever, and I could be wrong, you probably will never ever see that interest rate again.
Yeah, no, I don't think we'll either. Now, the good news for our buyers is the average buyer incomes have reached an
All
all
time high.
our buyers are making more money than they ever have. So first time buyers saw theirs jump up from 95,000 to 97,000. Repeat buyers moved from 111,000 to 114,000. So the good news is that even though yes, we are continuing to see home prices
Increasing.
yeah, but at a much more moderate rate, we're seeing where incomes are increasing faster now than property value appreciation. So that is a really good sign on what's kind of going on. Now, the average seller, on the other hand, the average seller is 63 years old. That's the highest age of a seller, average seller
Ever recorded.
ever out there, kind of thing, right? And so the average seller has lived in their home for an average of 10 years, and that's pretty much the same as where it
Yeah.
was last year, kind of thing. As far as like about a third of our sellers are trading up, a third are keeping about the same size of home. Only a third of our sellers are actually
Trading
trading.
down.
Yeah, and see, a lot of folks say, "I want to downsize. I want to downsize." When in reality,
Not
about a
really.
third of the time they really do. But then it's like whoever dies with the most stuff wins, right? All right. Still, the average seller is selling for really very close to what the average sale price is. Right now, we are seeing where inventory levels are increasing. We're seeing where days on market is higher this year than it was last year. we are sitting on about a little over 4 months of standing inventory. We need 6 months of standing inventory. We're not quite there yet, but
But it
but it
depends on
is
the price
growing.
point. I will tell you because there's more new inventory, and due to the interest rate, once again, it's available affordability, and so um, we do have a lot of pent up demands.
Yeah. Now, as far as like the relationship between real estate professionals and their agents, uh, by and large, 2/3 of all sellers found their agent from referrals and past clients. So even though we see a lot of different lead systems and things like that, the different sellers, I mean, the agents utilize, understand that your network, the relationships that you
Hmm.
have, 2/3 of your business is going to come from people you know and people that know you. That has to be the big important thing. 81% of sellers only contacted one agent before selling their home. So as a listing agent, what's most important? Being first. You have to show up first, be there first.
Answer your phone.
Oh, and answer your phone. That's something I learned big time from Ming, because she always answers her phone, right? So, as far as like what the sellers want from us, they want that we're going to help market their home. They want help with the timing of the home, and with pricing the home. Those are your three most important things. And when it comes to like why does someone choose a real estate professional? It really does come down to trust, right? And so the agent's reputation is the most important factor when someone is choosing an agent to sell their home.
Absolutely.
Trust, reputation, how you carry yourself. Are you honest? These are the things that are most important, because for our sellers and for our buyers, their home is for most people, their home is their most expensive asset. You don't just kind of wing that kind of
No, you don't.
as it goes along kind of thing.
So last quarter this year, so there's only 28% of all homes that was sold was new construction, which is the lowest number that we have had in new
Three
construction sale
years.
since 2021.
Yeah.
So that kind of lets you know what the builder's doing and their confidence level. And we have seen a lot of new build directly for investors. So, and I think that's where some of the trends are going right now.
Yeah, but we're just seeing overall the builders are incredibly sensitive to
Hmm.
interest rates. Now, that being said, if you do have a buyer who is very sensitive to interest rates,
New
strongly look at new
construction.
construction, right?
There are some really great offers out there right now, new construction, because their interest rate.
Well, and we just had one in our office yesterday. The Some of the DR Horton folks are offering a 3.99 and a
I saw one for
4.5.
2.99.
Woo!
So
I
that's
mean,
huge. But make sure you understand when they say 2.99 and also for 15,000 incentive, whatever that incentives is not, that 15,000 was the application 2.99.
right,
So
right.
therefore the buyer will not get any additional incentives.
Yeah, but working inside that new construction space, we are seeing less new construction right now than
Mhm.
we have in the past. Part of this is seasonal, right?
Correct.
Right, and so a lot of builders are ramping up right now, but just understand that that is tapering off a little bit. We real quick, we want to jump over and talk about homeowners insurance just briefly, right? Because what's happened with homeowners insurance is staggering, but it's also not consistent. And what I mean by that is, we went out and looked up, like what has happened with homeowners insurance, just say over the last 4 years. And if you look at where we're at, so you know, in our county, where we live, Henry County, homeowners insurance since 2020 is up over 50%, 51%.
1.4.
Yeah, and that's staggering. Now, just to kind of give you, but it's not consistent, right? So Fulton County for the last 4 years, Fulton County is up.
31.9.
Yeah. Clayton County,
44.1.
yeah. Rockdale though is only up. Yeah, I
35.8.
mean a lot less. DeKalb County, 32%. Fayette, 41. Coweta,
Coweta, 45.
yeah. Newton County, however, that's the
27.3.
lowest up there. And then Cobb County comes in at 42. overall, we wanted to share that it's not consistent across all the counties. The other thing that's out there is now's the time to shop rates. Now's the time to encourage your folks to shop rates when buying a home, because some of these homeowners insurance rates are messing up debt to income ratios. They're messing up DTI, how much folks can afford to spend, because some of the homeowner rates are nutty. Shop rates. Encourage your clients to shop
Absolutely.
rates, because one carrier and another, even us, we've had the same people for ever. Yeah.
Years.
And we're shopping rates. Same kind of thing. We encourage you and encourage your clients to do the same thing right now,
Yep.
and look at deductibles, what's kind of going on.
Just remember, as a realtor, the code of ethics end this year, December
Mm-hmm.
31st. So if you have not taken any code of ethics
For the last 3 years.
since 2022, January 1st, 2022, you might want to consider taking a code of ethics. Otherwise, you may lose your realtor membership.
You'll lose your realtor status. It has to be in before the end of this year.
Yep.
It happens every 3 years. It's a 3-year cycle. So please get your code of ethics in. You can find your code. I mean, sorry, what am I trying to say?
You can find the code of ethics online with www.mx1training.com or online with any your affiliation or association. So for more real estate ideas, tips, and tricks, please watch one of our mastermind or catch up our Need
Yeah,
Life
you
CE
just
training
hit the
at
button here. There you go.
mx1training.com.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great week.
Thank you. Have a great day.